Greetings to you. I am Pearl John from Logos Management, and I'm delighted that you join me week after week on this journey of demystifying the heroes of old to draw insights from their lives. Last week we continued on the life of Nehemiah, part 2, and we referenced the theme, when you set your heart to it, he shall orchestrate events to meet your vision despite obstacles. And we spoke of 3 key learnings. 1, your passion cannot be hidden. It will be evident to others. 2, your vision will find support from key stakeholders. And 3, a fair share of dissension will come your way, but you shall prevail. This week we focus on the theme, be cognizant of the extremes, but choose the right path forward. Be cognizant of the extremes, but choose the right path forward. I'd like to highlight 3 key learnings from the life of Nehemiah in this context, and these lessons are as relevant today as it was in the days of Nehemiah. 1. In a world given to remote working, there are certain crucial actions that are best carried out in person. COVID has changed several aspects of our lives in fundamental ways that we find ourselves comfortable operating in the new normal, which has obviated the old normal in some instances completely. Remote working is one such practice which has become an integral part of the new normal. While there are distinct advantages of remote working and they build in substantive efficiencies, the personal touch is perhaps imperative in certain contexts. Ensuring the personal touch in such situations brings significant benefits that are invariably not experienced in remote working. As the consulting director of a global consulting firm, I had the privilege of observing remote working, and the benefits were clearly evident. However, for critical inputs to be gleaned from the ground, I made it a point to carry out in-person visits which provided a significant insight into issues on the ground, which would not have been possible had I employed the remote mechanisms. Nehemiah did just that. He had heard about the Jerusalem walls being broken and the gates being burned with fire from frontline witnesses who brought first-hand information from Judea. But Nehemiah was well aware that while the first account information was relevant and useful, it would not be the same as visiting Jerusalem personally to gather on-the-ground information and on-the-ground insights. This is the reason he embarked on the visit to Jerusalem. This in turn enabled him to gather insights afresh that paved the way for him to build the walls and repair the gates of Jerusalem. Are you looking for ways to remain remote when you are better off being in person? Are you shunning the in-person visits in favor of remote working? While it may be the new normal, perhaps it is useful to take a departure from the new normal to ensure you are delivering above the normal. Secondly, there are certain actions to be done during the day and others to be done in the night. And you find that in verses 11 and 12. Nehemiah came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. We find in verse 11 of chapter 2, his presence in Jerusalem for 3 days was an important part of his work in Jerusalem. To my mind, he was perhaps using the time during the day to meet with the remnant in Jerusalem and get a pulse of the people. And you move on to verse 12 and 13, and we find he went by night to view the dilapidated walls, as he was conscious not to draw any attention towards himself and wanted to avoid being noticed. Mind you, his intention was noble. His goal was to rebuild the walls, and his objective was truly applaudable. He wanted to restore the gates, but he went about surreptitiously in the night. That could have cost perhaps a few eyebrows to be raised. What does it tell me? 1. There are certain things that are best done during the day. Do them during the day. For example, start a new project, meeting your stakeholders or partners are best done during the day. And there are certain things that are best done in the night. Do them in the night with minimal advertisement. There are some who thrive as the night owls and bring their best to the tables in the night. And there are others who are in their element in the early hours of the day. Do not straitjacket and expect everyone to be a morning person. On the contrary, There are some who work in the nights, and there are others who are at their creative best during the day. In fact, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, a techie, is a self-declared non-morning person, and he's doing very well both on the technical front as also on the leadership front. Whatever be your propensity, do what you are expected to do when you are required to do, and you will have the blessing of God on your life. Thirdly, curate your plans in secret, but find opportune times to communicate in public. Oftentimes you find people who are consumed by the actions of today, and they are challenged to take time out to plan ahead. Nehemiah demonstrated his capability to plan ahead. In Nehemiah 2:11 to 20, we see Nehemiah first surveying the damage to the walls and carefully planning out the rebuilding process. When Nehemiah first heard about the ruined walls of Jerusalem, he didn't immediately announce his plans to rebuild them. Instead, he kept his plans to himself and prayed to God for guidance. This is an important lesson for us to perhaps imitate. We are called to be good stewards of the resources and talents that God has given us. But remember that not all of our plans are to be shared with everyone. Sometimes it is important to keep your plans and goals to yourselves and to seek guidance from God in secret. The Bible teaches in Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. When you plan in secret, we acknowledge our dependence on God and seeking His guidance in all aspects of our lives. In addition, planning in secret can also help you avoid distractions and unnecessary criticisms. When you keep your plans to yourselves, you can avoid the opinions and objections of others who may not understand or agree with your goals. This allows you to focus on what God has called you to do and to move forward with confidence in His plan for you. Furthermore, planning in secret also helps you to maintain humility. When you share your plans with others, you may be tempted to become prideful or boastful. But when you keep your plans to yourselves, you remind yourself of your dependence on God and your need for His guidance and His provision. In fact, someone said that you are better off keeping your ventures to yourself, but when the time was right, he shared his plans openly with the people of Jerusalem. He rallied the people around and motivated them to work together towards the common goal. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 1 says, there is a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens. As you make plans and set goals for your lives, you must be mindful of the appropriate time to communicate them. You must be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit and trust in His timing. Effective communication, not just about sharing your plans, but it also calls for you being willing to listen to the concerns and ideas of others. Nehemiah understood that rebuilding the walls would require the cooperation and collaboration of many different people, and he was willing to listen to the concerns and ideas of others. Nehemiah teaches the importance of planning, keeping the plans in secret at times, but also the importance of communicating those plans openly at the appropriate time. You must be intentional in how you use the resources and talents that God has entrusted. Be open to communication, be willing to listen to different perspectives, and be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit in order to achieve the goals that God has set in your heart. This is Pearl John signing off, the other 167. Thank you for watching. We will meet the next Friday to continue this series. Do join in. God bless you.